Vrakan slammed one of his right fists on the ship's control console, frustration boiling over as the surface scans rolled in. The planet had seemed ideal 4 months ago when the Berberin probe first began transmitting data from deep within this unexplored sector. Its atmosphere and mineral deposits promised a perfect candidate for colonization. Now, nothing but complications had arisen since the landing party touched down. What seemed like a world of opportunity was quickly turning into a death trap. The Korath had been in orbit for weeks. What began as a routine exploration turned into an agonizing ordeal. Vrakan's Berberin crew, a proud warrior species with 4 muscular arms, 3 sharp eyes, and horns that crowned their elongated skulls, had begun losing hope. The planet was relentless in its hostility. "Captain, the latest environmental data. It's worse than we thought," Jareth, the political officer, said, reading over the updated scan. His sharp green eyes darted across the data streams, searching for any sign of hope. Vrakan gritted his teeth. Hope was a word that had lost its meaning here. Worse how? Zareth didn't hesitate. Gravity near the equator is nearly double what our initial scans showed. Atmospheric pressure is far greater too. Most of our machinery can't handle the stress. Even landing there would crush our equipment. The captain's eyes darkened as he stood, his towering figure casting long shadows in the dimly lit bridge. And yet our people are down there. The planet's surface, blistering and chaotic, was a place that should have never been. Exoder, part of the landing party, stumbled through the thick mud of the jungle terrain, the weight of the gravity pressing down on every bone in his body. His 3-fingered hands clutched his scanning device, trying to make sense of the readings, but it was hopeless. Even breathing the filtered air through his suit felt like drowning. Kirov, he called into his comm, his voice strained. "What's the status on comms? We need to get this data back to Vrakan." There was a crackle of static, followed by Kirov's shaky voice from the orbiting ship. "Comms are unstable. The electromagnetic fields near the mountains are interfering with our signals." Exoder cursed under his breath. He looked up at the distant mountains, their peaks swirling in ominous clouds, likely filled with charged particles. No wonder their technology was failing here. "Drenak, how are the generators holding up?" Exoder asked, looking over at the engineer who was desperately trying to keep the machinery running. Barely, Drenak muttered through clenched teeth, his 4 arms moving with the precision of a seasoned technician. "If we don't get some reinforced materials down here, everything is going to break apart." The landing party had been fighting the planet for days. The equipment, designed for standard environments, was no match for the violent storms, oppressive gravity, and toxic bursts from nearby geysers. Injuries were mounting, fractures from simple missteps, blood pressure spikes causing aneurysms, and a string of debilitating illnesses that Merilith, the team's medic, could barely keep up with. Suddenly, Exoder's scanner beeped. He froze. "Lifeform detected," he whispered, heart pounding. "Is it local fauna?" Drenak asked, already tensing for a fight. Before Exoder could respond, a towering 4-legged creature burst through the dense foliage, its massive frame adapted to the crushing gravity. Its scales shimmered in the dim light as it let out a guttural roar, charging toward them. "Move!" Exoder yelled, and the landing party scattered. Back on the Korath, Vrakan's frustration was about to hit its peak when the console beeped with a proximity alert. An unknown vessel was entering their airspace. Jareth leaned over, his eyes narrowing at the readings. "Captain, we have a problem. A foreign ship broke through the atmosphere." It was nothing like the sleek, efficient Berberin craft. This was crude, industrial, and human. Vrakan cursed. The humans had arrived. The human ship, Pathfinder, made its landing near the southern plateau, an area the Berberin hadn't even surveyed yet. The Korath's bridge crew watched in shock as the human vessel opened its hatch and a group of humans stepped out onto the planet's surface without hesitation. "They're not even using suits," Jareth said, disgusted. The human leader, Rylan Creed, stepped out of the ship. His crew followed, each carrying equipment and supplies like they were taking a walk in the park. One of them, a stocky man named Harv, grabbed a handful of strange alien fruit from a nearby bush and stuffed it into his mouth. "What are they doing?" Vrakhan growled, fists tightening. Rylan's voice crackled over their comms. "This is Captain Rylan Creed of the Pathfinder United Earth Federation. We're here to establish our claim on this planet. Just saying hello, neighbor." "Unbelievable," Vrakhan muttered. "Open a channel." Jareth complied, and the captain's voice filled the room. "Human vessel Pathfinder, this is Captain Vrakhan of the Berberin ship Korath. This planet is already under Berberin exploration and claim. Your presence is unlawful." There was a pause. Then Rylan's voice came back, calm and almost amused. "Sorry to hear that, but I don't see your flag down here. I guess we'll have to settle this face to face." Vrakhan's landing party descended to meet the humans, who were already setting up a makeshift camp. The air was thick and humid, making every step feel like an eternity for the Berberin. They were barely holding up in the oppressive environment, but the humans were laughing, talking, moving as if the planet was nothing more than a slightly challenging playground. Rylan stood at the forefront, flanked by Harv, the human medic doctor. Zane and their security officer, Marek Delgado, a man as imposing as any Berberin warrior. "You picked a rough planet to settle on," Rylan said as Vrakhan approached. "But it's perfect for us. We were here first," Vrakhan hissed, the gravity dragging down his words. "Our claim is already recognized by who?" Rylan asked casually. "The galaxy's a big place, Captain. And as far as I can tell, this world suits us better. Look around, your people are struggling just to stand, and we're thriving." Jareth stepped forward, his diplomatic instincts kicking in. "We could negotiate. The Berberin government is willing to compensate for the inconvenience of your arrival. But this planet is unsuitable for you in the long run. You don't know its dangers." Harv, still chewing on alien fruit, spoke through a full mouth. "Tastes pretty good to me." Hours passed as negotiations unfolded inside the human camp. Vrakhan knew the truth: they were losing. The humans had every advantage. They could survive the crushing gravity, endure the atmosphere, and their crude technology adapted faster than the Berberins' advanced systems. Dr. Zane even assisted Merilith in treating one of the injured Berberin crew members. Despite the humans' infuriating arrogance, their compassion was real, and Vrakhan couldn't deny that it made things worse. How could they defeat an enemy that wasn't even hostile? "We could have taken this planet together," Rylan said at last, watching as Marek distributed supplies. "But now the best I can offer is a trade deal. You give up your claim, we share the resources, and no one has to get hurt." Vrakhan's blood boiled. The idea of submitting to these reckless humans, of giving up a world he'd fought so hard to claim, it was too much. But as he looked out at his exhausted, beaten crew, he knew there was no other choice. "We'll consult with our government," Jareth said smoothly, though the strain was evident in his voice. Rylan nodded. "Take your time. We're not going anywhere." The Berberin retreated, battered and humiliated. Vrakhan knew it was over. The humans had claimed their new home, and all the Berberin could do was try to salvage what little dignity remained. Back on the Korath, Vrakhan stared out into the night sky, knowing that beyond the stars his people would soon learn of this defeat. This world would belong to the humans, and the Berberin would be forced to negotiate for the scraps. For now there was only silence, the silence of a world lost. Vrakan's hands trembled as he removed his helmet, feeling the oppressive weight of the planet's gravity lift slightly as he stepped back into the Korath. He couldn't shake the image of the humans below laughing, building, living as if the hostile environment meant nothing to them. Jareth followed, his face unreadable, but Vrakan could see the tension in his eyes. The political officer was always calm, always collected, but even he had no words for the situation they now found themselves in. "What now?" Captain Jareth asked softly, once the landing door sealed behind them. Vrakan walked over to the central console and brought up the latest planetary data. He didn't answer right away, staring at the holographic display of the planet that should have been theirs. The Korath was barely holding in orbit now, with the ship's systems overworked and overstressed by the electromagnetic storms emanating from the southern poles. "This world is killing us," Vrakan finally admitted, his voice low. "And the humans are right, we won't survive here," we could fight, Jareth offered, though his tone held no real conviction. "And lose," Vrakan replied. "Our people aren't made for this place. Even if we killed every human down there, this world would kill us right after." Jareth sat down heavily at the console. "Then we give up." Vrakan's three eyes glinted in the dim light of the bridge. "We don't have a choice. But that doesn't mean we have to walk away with nothing." Meanwhile, back on the planet's surface, Rylan Creed and his crew were preparing for what they knew would be an inevitable standoff. The humans had adapted surprisingly well to the gravity, the toxic atmosphere, and the intense magnetic storms that swept the sky. It was far from Earth-like, but it wasn't unbearable. Harv, sitting near the fire, was gnawing on another piece of alien fruit, grinning like a child. "I still can't believe they thought this place was theirs," he said, shaking his head. "They look like they're about to fall over just walking around. They underestimated us," Dr. Zane said as he checked over the latest environmental readings. The human medic had seen plenty of dangerous planets, but this one was different. "It's not just the Berberin. Every species that came before us didn't make it, but humans," we adapt. Merrick Delgado, their security officer, stood watch at the perimeter of the camp. He was less optimistic, his hand resting lightly on the pulse rifle slung over his shoulder. "Still, I wouldn't get too comfortable. Desperate people are dangerous, and the Berberin are desperate." Rylan stepped into the center of the group, arms crossed. "They'll be back soon. Their captain's not stupid, but he's proud. The question is, how much of that pride will he swallow before he walks away?" Harv snorted. "I'm betting not much." Back on the Korath, Vrakan and Jareth prepared to make contact with the Berberin High Council. A decision had to be made, and Vrakan knew that even though they were far from their homeworld, they couldn't act without authorization from their leaders. The stakes were too high. The comms flickered to life, and the holographic image of the High Council materialized before them. 7 members, each from a different clan of the Berberin, sat in shadowy seats. Their faces were hidden, their voices deep and commanding. "Captain Vrakan, report," one of the council members said, their tone leaving no room for hesitation. Vrakan straightened. "We have completed our analysis of the planet. The conditions are far worse than expected. Gravity, electromagnetic fields, and atmospheric toxicity are far beyond what our initial scans suggested." There was a pause, and another council member spoke. "And what of the humans? They are here," Vrakan admitted, his voice bitter. "They are adapting to the planet better than we can. If we attempt to hold our claim, we will be forced into a conflict we cannot win." The council was silent for a long moment. Jareth glanced at Vrakan, knowing what was about to come next. The High Council had always been pragmatic, willing to cut losses where necessary. But this time, it was different. This was their last shot at expanding into this region of space. Finally, the head council member spoke again. "And what do you suggest?" Captain Vrakon took a deep breath. "We negotiate. The humans are offering trade. If we continue this course, we will lose more than just this world. We will lose the opportunity to gain from it on the planet's surface." The humans were gathering supplies when a Berberin shuttle descended from the sky. Rillan stepped out of his tent and adjusted the strap on his shoulder holster, signaling for Merrick to join him. The landing shuttle opened, and Vrakhan emerged with Zareth by his side. Both of them looked worse for wear, the gravity already taking its toll again, but they stood tall. "Back so soon?" Rillan called out, his voice light. Vrakhan's eyes narrowed. "I've spoken with my council. We are prepared to discuss terms." Merrick gave Rillan a knowing glance, and the human captain nodded. "Let's talk." Then the two groups sat around a table hastily assembled in the middle of the human camp. Rillan, Harv, and Merrick faced Vrakhan and Zareth across the table, with Dr. Zane nearby, ready to step in if anyone needed medical assistance. "The Berberin will not concede this planet," Vrakhan began, his voice steady but filled with the weight of compromise. "But we will agree to cohabitate and share its resources. We propose a formal trade agreement that benefits both our species." Rillan leaned back in his chair, glancing at Merrick before responding. "That's generous, Captain, but you and I both know that your people can't stay here for long. The planet's conditions will wipe you out before the end of your first colony." Zareth's eyes flashed. "We are not asking for your pity, human. We know the risks." Merrick cut in, his voice calm but firm. "No one's offering pity. But if we're going to work together, you need to understand that we're not interested in seeing you die for pride." Vrakhan's fists clenched, but he didn't respond to the bait. "We will endure," he said simply. Rillan nodded slowly. "All right, we'll give you time. But we'll need to finalize the trade terms soon. Earth's government will want proof that we're making progress here." "We'll get you your terms," Zareth said, his tone diplomatic. The agreement, shaky as it was, marked the beginning of an uneasy peace. The Berberin started constructing their settlement at the edge of the plateau, far from the human camp but close enough for trade. The electromagnetic storms made regular communication difficult, but both sides managed. Days passed, and the Berberin settlement took shape, though their struggle to adapt to the gravity and atmosphere became more apparent with each passing day. Vrakhan knew the truth: they would never truly thrive here. The humans, on the other hand, were flourishing. Their settlements expanded, and their technology adapted to the harsh conditions faster than anyone could have predicted. One evening, as Vrakhan stood outside his command post, watching the distant glow of the human campfires, Zareth approached. "We've received word from the High Council," Zareth said quietly. "They're satisfied with the arrangement." For now, Vrakhan nodded. For now they stood in silence, watching as the humans continued to build, oblivious to the invisible battle that had already been lost. The humans would not need to fight for this planet. They had already won it simply by surviving. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and hit subscribe for more exciting content. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.